Right now, in a lab in California, a scientist is growing chicken nuggets. There are no chickens involved. No feathers, no beaks, no cages, no farms, just a small collection of cells, a steel tank, and a nutrient-rich solution. And now here's the interesting part. The nuggets have already been approved by the United States government as safe to eat. Most people have no idea that this is already happening. They think lab-grown meat is decades away. It's not. It's already on people's plates in Singapore and San Francisco. Stay with us until the end because the last part of this video will change the way you think about every meal for the rest of your life. And that's the real question. Will the world finally stop eating animals? Will the burger you order in 2040 ever exist? The answer doesn't just depend on technology. It depends on something deeper. And most people don't even know it's there. Because to understand the future of meat, you first have to understand where it all started. Humans have been eating meat for at least 25 million years. It's almost impossible for many people to imagine. For most of that time, meat wasn't an option. It was a means of survival. It provided protein when plants failed. It provided fat when winter came, and it provided calories that fueled a brain that grew larger and more complex over time. Some researchers say that without animal protein, the human brain would never have reached its current size. Think about that for a moment. The same brain you're using to understand this video right now. It may have been shaped by meat, but meat wasn't just fuel. It became an identity. It became a culture. It became a memory. It became a tradition. It's Thanksgiving. It's Sunday barbecue. It's the first meal someone makes for you when you get home from a long trip. It's your grandmother's recipe that tastes like a special meal made at home. So when scientists started saying they wanted to replace all of that with protein grown in steel tanks, a lot of people said no, immediately and without thinking. And that's why that reaction is actually the most interesting part of this whole story. Right now, livestock farming uses about 80% of the world's agricultural land. 80% for animals that produce about 20% of the world's calories. And right now, there are 8 billion people on this planet. By 2050, there will be close to 10 billion. Global demand for meat is expected to increase by about 70% by mid-century. Land, water, carbon budget, they don't have the capacity for it. So scientists started asking another question. What if you didn't just grow meat, not the animal, just the part you eat, just muscle tissue, protein, the stuff that ends up on your plate, no brain, no lungs, no nervous system, just cells dividing in a controlled environment. A scientist takes a small sample of muscle cells from a living animal. It's a biopsy. It's the same procedure doctors use on humans every day. The animal is not harmed. It goes back to live its life. Those cells go into a bioreactor, a large, carefully controlled tank. Inside the tank, a nutrient-rich liquid called a growth medium surrounds the cell. The cells do what cells have always done. They divide, over and over again. Over the course of several weeks, they build muscle fibers, structured protein. That's what meat is really about on a biological level. Structured protein. The result looks like ground beef. The first commercial products were minced meat, burger patty, nugget, but researchers are already working on whole cut steaks with fatty marbling, chicken breast with the right amount of pull and texture, pork that falls apart as you cut into them. The challenge with whole cuts is the structure. Cells organize themselves in 3 dimensions just as they do inside a living animal, which is still being solved with scaffolding. Edible structures that guide cell growth in the same way bones and connective tissue do in a real animal. It's working. Slowly, but it's working. And the initial taste results weren't what most people expected. A Dutch researcher named Mark Post at Maastricht University created the first lab-grown beef burger in 2013. It was eaten live on television. 2 critics who tried the meal said it tasted like meat. Not perfect, a little dry. The fat was missing, but the basic protein structure, the chew, the density, the way it broke down. They were right. That was 2013. By 2015, Mark Post's team had reduced the price per burger. That's not a typo. By the early 2020s, several companies had brought the price down even further. The companies had received millions of dollars in investment. The same companies that process billions of animals every year. They're not doing it out of altruism. They're doing it because they think that if this technology reaches price parity with conventional meat, it will be a waste of money. The economics of the food industry are completely changing, and they want to be on the right side of that change. But this is where it gets weird. Even as the science accelerates, even as investment increased, even as governments began approving these products for sale, consumer acceptance stalled. Surveys conducted across the United States and Europe in 2022 and 2023 consistently showed the same thing. Nearly half of respondents said they would try cultured meat. About half said they wouldn't, and those who said no often couldn't fully explain why. They used words like unnatural, totally wrong, not dangerous, not unhealthy, just wrong. There's a name for this feeling in psychology. It's called the disgust response, and a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania has studied it for decades. Her research reveals something deeply contradictory. Disgust doesn't respond to logic. You can't argue with someone with a disgust response with facts, because disgust doesn't process in the part of the brain that handles reasoning. It's processed in a much older part, the part that evolved to protect early humans from eating things things that could kill them. Rotten meat, contaminated water, unknown substances. This system worked remarkably remarkably well for millions of years. And it still does, all the time. Critics pointed out that these products were ultra-processed foods by the standard nutritional definition, the same category that emerging research was increasingly linking to negative health outcomes. People who switched to plant-based meat for health reasons began to ask if it was really healthy, and the honest answer is complicated. For the environment, yes, significantly better than beef. For individual health, less clear. The protein is real, the calories are comparable, but the processing is also real. So now you have three systems competing: traditional meat from live animals, plant-based alternatives made from crop, and meat grown from cells in bioreactors. Each has its advantages. Each has serious problems. And right now, no one knows who wins. But here's what the data actually suggests. The world won't go entirely in one direction. Different markets will make different choices. A farming family in rural Texas won't respond to this story the same way a tech worker in Seoul will. The future of protein is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. It's a contradiction. Wealthy markets are moving rapidly toward alternatives. Emerging markets are seeing increased consumption of conventional meat as incomes rise, and a global policy conversation that's barely begun. But here's what no one is talking about loudly: land. If farmed meat scales, if the economics work, if traditional meat consumption drops significantly, the land currently used to raise livestock and grow their feed becomes available. In the United States alone, about 40% of the land is used for agriculture. Much of that is for animal feed crops and grazing. If that demand fell by half, a huge area of the earth could be returned to nature. Animals, around 80 billion land animals, are slaughtered for food around the world every year. 80 billion. The human population is 8 billion. 10 times more animals are killed each year than humans. The majority live in industrial conditions. Conditions that most people, if they encounter them, are very uncomfortable with. And most people never go near them. And now here's the part that brings it all back to you. Right now, today, in this particular moment that you're living in, you're at the very beginning of what could be the biggest shift in human food production in 10,000 years. The last time food fundamentally changed was from hunting and gathering to farming. This shift took thousands of years. It could take decades. And unlike that ancient transition, it's not forced by environmental pressures or the failure of a previous system. It's being made intentionally. But here's the history of food, how these changes actually happen. They don't happen through great choice. They happen through small, hidden people. People don't decide to change their diet because of a documentary. They change because the option in front of them at the drive-thru window changes, because the cafeteria has changed suppliers, because the price of one thing has gone up and the price of another thing has gone down. Behavior follows the environment, not the other way around. The future of meat won't be decided by a global conversation about ethics and sustainability. It will be decided when someone finds a cheaper option on the shelf. In that moment, a school district signs a contract with a new food supplier. In that moment, a fast food chain quietly decides to change ingredients without telling you. You probably won't even know it happened. You'll just be eating something different. And here's the final thought. For the first time in 25 million years, humanity has the ability to separate the act of eating meat from the act of ending life. It's never been possible. Not once. Not in the entire span of human existence on this planet. Whether that possibility becomes a reality for most of the world, or disappears as a failed experiment, no one knows yet. But you're still alive. The answer is